Welcome to What's Happening in Turkey in less than 10 minutes. I am Tarık Toros, and this week we are focusing on Bluesky, a lifeline for some, a safe haven for others. The Bluesky social network has skyrocketed in popularity, becoming one of the top downloaded social media apps in app stores over the past week following US elections. Bluesky's emergence couldn't come at a more critical time for Turkey. Over the past decade, freedom of expression has been systematically eroded, with authoritarian control suffocating traditional media. Social media platforms have become the last refuge for dissenting voices. In this environment, platforms like Bluesky are more than tools. They are lifelines for people fighting to share the truth, document injustices, and stay connected with the world. To understand the significance of Bluesky, we need to examine how social media has evolved under Erdogan's regime. When Twitter launched in 2008, it was a novelty in Turkey. By 2013, it had become indispensable during the Gezi Park protests. What began as a local demonstration against the destruction of a park turned into a nationwide movement against authoritarianism, police brutality, and the erosion of democratic freedoms. I remember Gezi vividly. Traditional media, under heavy government pressure, ignored the unrest. Twitter became the only platform where the truth could be shared in real time. Activists used it to organize. Journalists like myself shared stories censored elsewhere, and citizens documented police violence. It was a digital public square. But this power also made Twitter a target. The government saw its ability to mobilize opposition as a threat. In response, they cracked down hard. Protesters faced police brutality. Internet access was restricted in protest zones, and troll armies flooded the platform with disinformation. By 2014, Twitter was outright banned, with the government claiming it threatened public order. The backlash was massive. Millions bypassed the ban with VPNs. And even then, President Abdullah Gül tweeted his disapproval, ironically circumventing the government's restrictions. Despite the ban, Twitter became a critical tool for dissent. Between 2013 and 2016, it was the last bastion of free expression. But the government escalated its efforts. Troll farms manipulated discourse, court orders forced the removal of content critical of the regime, and dissenting accounts faced harassment or arrest. I experienced this firsthand in 2016, when my account became the subject of a court order. Twitter notified me, and I appealed, arguing that the attempt to block my account was baseless. Thankfully, Twitter refused to comply, protecting my right to free expression. But I was one of the lucky ones. Thousands of accounts were silenced, and fear grew, stopping many from sharing their views. After the failed coup attempt in July 2016, things got worse. Under a state of emergency, the government passed new laws forcing social media companies to set up local offices, giving them more control over platforms. This allowed the state to demand the removal of content and block accounts with ease. Even mild criticism online became grounds for prosecution. Journalists, academics, and activists were arrested, further shrinking the space for free expression. Fast forward to 2022. When Elon Musk acquired Twitter. Under his leadership, now rebranded as X, the platform took a dramatically different approach to government demands. In May 2023, Musk complied with Turkey's request to block specific accounts critical of the regime. One of these accounts belonged to exiled journalist Cevheri Güven, whose investigative reporting exposes corruption and human rights abuses within the Erdogan regime. Musk openly admitted to bowing to the request, justifying his decision by saying it was necessary to prevent Twitter from being throttled entirely in Turkey. This marked a sharp departure from the platform's previous commitment to free expression and transparency. By October 2024, X had blocked 177 accounts, including mine. I received a vague email referencing a court order, but with no explanation of what I had supposedly done wrong. A few days later, I was sent a document labeled as a judicial decision, but it provided no real details. The process was arbitrary and opaque. It was a stark reminder of how fragile these platforms can become under authoritarian pressure. Now, let's look at the bigger picture. X's global user numbers are declining. In April 2024, it had 611 million users worldwide. By September, that number dropped to 588 million. In the EU, X's users fell from 111.4 million in the first half of 2024 to 106 million. According to the Financial Times, X's user base has dropped by a third in the UK and by a fifth in the US over the past year. These declines reflect the erosion of trust in a platform that once stood for free expression.
Who did you say? Oh, let me tell you, we have a new star. A star is born, Elon.
This is where Bluesky offers hope. Unlike X, it's built on principles of decentralized governance, user-controlled content, and resistance to censorship. It doesn't rely on ads or sell user data. For Turkey, where media is either controlled or silent, Bluesky could be a game changer. But challenges remain. Platforms that stand up to authoritarian regimes often face relentless pressure. The question is whether Bluesky can resist and maintain its core principles. Can it succeed where others have faltered? The stakes couldn't be higher. For journalists like Can Dündar, who fled into exile to continue his work, or Cemre Birant, who uses her voice to highlight injustices, platforms like Bluesky are vital. They are spaces where the truth can be shared, where those silences elsewhere can find a voice. For me, this is personal. I have seen how platforms like Twitter can be lifelines, both for those who consume information and those who create it. Bluesky represents a chance to rebuild what has been lost in Turkey. It's not just about technology. It's about the survival of independent journalism and free expression in a world that desperately needs both. The world should be paying attention. What happens in Turkey is not an isolated struggle. It's part of a global fight for freedom of expression. If Bluesky can succeed here, it can inspire hope in other repressive regimes. If it fails, the silence will be deafening.